Greetings, students, and welcome to another fun-filled day here at
Horror in the Halls.
What's up, kids, and welcome to Horror in the Halls. I'm Bob, aka Mr. Holland.
And I'm Jenny, aka Mrs. Hill.
And we're just two high school teachers educating the masses on the spooky stuff we love. The lesson plan for June is taking us on a field trip to Shadyside. So join us as we end the curse and delve into 2021's Fear Street Part 3, 1666.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one.
It was good. It was good the second time around. I feel like it was better.
Yeah, I saw some cool things, I think, that I probably did not see the first time. As just kind of watching it.
Yeah, and remember when you were like, it doesn't even take place on Fear Street. It does take place on Fear Street.
I noted that.
Sarah Fear is how it's spelled. I thought that was really cool. Johnny goes, "Oh my God, it is Fear Street."
Yeah.
Yes. I didn't notice that the first time I watched it.
I thought it was pretty cool. I know I was watching it this morning, and I was making my notes, and I was laughing. I've said like 12 times it doesn't take place on Fear Street.
Yeah,
your dude lives on Fear Street, and I like that little kind of nod. I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was neat.
And his character is just funny. Martin's
I wasn't expecting that, and it made me laugh, and I was like, man, I wonder if Bob catches it.
Oh yeah. So. I was giggling about it. He's funny. Like, hey, you want to help us kill the sheriff good? I'll get my code. I was like, come on, dog. It's ridiculous.
He was funny.
It was.
He was a good addition.
And of course he's in the first one too. So he does. I liked. That's probably my favorite part. I know we talked previously about a lot of the plot holes that bothered me, and you kept saying they're going to wrap them up, and they do. They do a really good job. But there was stuff I think they even wrapped up that I didn't even realize or even kind of remember from the first one. Like not even plot holes. They're just like little nods. Like they explained the red moss from part 2. They explain all the spray paint everywhere. Like they kind of bring everything full circle.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. There's a lot of cool nods in this one. So let's get to the details real fast so we can get into it and kind of discuss. Because there was a lot of things I noticed this time around that I thought were really cool. And after watching them kind of all 3 again, I noticed things in this movie that kind of tie back to the others. And it was pretty cool. Yeah. So, of course, this one was released to 2021, July 16th is when it dropped on Netflix. Like I said, they all came out a week apart originally. This one's still directed by Leigh Janiak. It was, like I said in the last episode, this was supposed to be just 1 and 3 directed by her, but she ended up doing all 3, which is kind of cool because I think you see a lot of, like, continuity in them. A lot of times when you see the same director, you get that same kind of feel in all 3 movies, which I think helps these. So I think it ended up being a blessing in disguise. I'm sure she was, she said in her interview she was rushed to do the second one, but I think having that same person, that same kind of creative direction the whole time brought the story full circle, which I like. Of course, the story... Sorry, go ahead.
She did a good job on all 3 of them.
I'd like to see her do more stuff. Like, I think, especially in this realm, get in more teenage horror. Like, we need more... Like, this generation needs a Scream, right? And I think they kind of wanted this to be that, like whenever we were teenagers, we had Scream. Of course, I grew up watching, like, 80s horror and stuff. But a lot of people who are our age got into horror because they saw Scream when they were, like, early, preteen, late teens, whatever. And they needed that. And I think this one kind of suffered a little bit from being on Netflix. They didn't have that widespread, like, push release like Scream did, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it was still really good. And hopefully there's like a future for it, which I want to get into later. It'd be really cool to see that. This one was actually written by the story by Phil Grazadil. He kind of did the first one as well. The second one had a different writer because the story was so different. But Leigh Janiak and Kate Traffey both had like a hand in it. They just had that main person was different. Of course, they're based on the Fear Street series by R.L. Stine. Great job. same cinematographer, which you can tell for sure that Stranger Things fingerprint is all over this. And there
Yeah.
was stuff I noticed in this one that I did not notice before, which I thought was really cool. Like I kind of thought I noticed, and now I really paid attention. Like some of the camera work, which when we get into the rubric, we'll talk about. Same special effects guy, Christopher Allen Nelson, was the leader of the team. Great job. They all look awesome in this. The kills are really good. They're not as brutal as part 2, I don't think. They're a little more
I feel
subdued.
like I feel like the first and second one were the most brutal.
I don't know, man. The eyes are pretty gnarly. It was
That was
it was smaller, but it was still
that
impactful.
I feel like was an exception because that was like one scene, but that scene was horrific. So
well, that's the majority of the deaths in this episode. In this entry is all from there. There's like 12 of them right there. And we go in the roll call of death. I'll call them all out. But like it's like okay, and there's some cool throwbacks too, which we'll talk about. 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, 76 audience. So it got a little bit better of a critic score, I think, because it wrapped everything up. Audience was a little bit worse, which is how I feel about it too. If I had to rank them, I would not put this as the top. And I think at the end we should talk about how we each ranked them just to see. I think that'd be interesting. So in 3.5 on Letterboxd, it had the same as part 2, which is really good. I kind of trust Letterboxd more than I do Rotten Tomatoes anyway. Quick plot: in 1666, a colonial town is gripped by a hysterical witch hunt, which was a great tie-in to like some actual American throwbacks, with the Salem witch trials. It has a
they
deadly
did a really good
consequences.
job with
I know,
the
right?
historical accuracy with that stuff, like
It
and
looked good
tying it
too.
in and tying it into the actual supernatural, which obviously wasn't apparent back then, but like I think it was like they did a good job mixing the two.
Yeah, and you don't expect. Even though I knew the twist was coming, I still didn't expect it. I'm like, oh man, I forgot that. You piece of crap. You know what I mean? You're just like, it was your fault, and it was cool. But it's interesting to see. I think back to that point with the witch trials, we kind of see that as high school teachers. Like one little thing happens, like or anything at all. Like say for instance, we had a teacher recently had to be put on leave, right? No one really knows what happens, but when one little thing, like one little kid says something, it turns into the craziest story ever, like in a week, right? By the end of the week, someone's murdered 12 people, and there was like, I don't know, like a lurid affair with a turtle. It's ridiculous because the kids are nuts.
Affair with the turtle.
You know what I mean? Like
you become a lesbian furry.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
That actually happened to one of our teachers.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, that was funny.
She was out for like some conferences and stuff, and like apparently she was getting a divorce because she was a lesbian and a furry, and we're just like, what?
And then one day she was having a gallbladder attack or something,
she had something,
and they
had
thought
to leave.
And they thought she was having a heart attack, and they all told everybody that this Miss, I'm not gonna say her name, but like Miss whatever, she's having a heart attack. Like, no, she's not.
I know, so much so that one of the kids' parents called in to check on her. Like that's how much these stories go, and it's so
one
funny.
One of your teachers is having a heart attack in the room.
I know, right?
Oh, like stupid.
They brought the nurses down there. It was ridiculous, and it's so funny, like even to tie that in because we know that is a period in American history. The witch trials, that was a really big kind of dark point in our past, I guess.
Yeah.
And we still see it today, right? We don't have the same, like, not to the fact we hang people, but you get like socially hung, essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like socially killed, essentially, by some of these rumors that get spread for nonsense. So I think they get a good job showing that, but it's almost not hard like to go back and do that because we still do it. We just don't take it to the extreme or for the same reasons as we did back then.
Yeah, because it was all based in jealousy in this, and then it was like once one person said this is what happened, then everyone else said, yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, dude was mad they made fun of him.
Yeah.
That's it, dude.
And he was jealous too because he really wanted to get with what was her name? Hannah Miller.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was a dork.
He's her boyfriend in part 1. Same guy.
Oh, is he? That makes sense. He's a dork in that too.
He really is. So before we get too far, let's go to the cast real quick. So Kiana Madeira is back as Seraphir / Dina. She's still Dina, but she has a little cool flashback, and we'll talk about that in a second. Elizabeth Scopel is back as the real Seraphir. Ashley Zuckerman, of course, plays Solomon Good and Nick Good in this one. Ted Sutherland is back as a young Nick Good. Jillian Jacobs as adult Ziggy / C. Berman. Sadie Sink plays 2 characters in this one. She's Constance Berman and Ziggy Berman, which is pretty cool. As a historical, she's like their ancestor. Olivia Scott Welch plays Hannah Miller, and she's still Samantha Frazier in this one. Benjamin Flores is Henry Fear and Josh. That was pretty cool. Like, they're not really ancestors, but to have the same actor step in, I thought that was pretty neat. That was the only one I wish would have been someone else because it didn't make sense. Like, for her to go back and you see Dina's character as Sarah Fear made sense, but it shouldn't have been Henry. Should not have been her brother. I don't think that should have been the same character. But I get why they did it, but I think that was kind of weird. It didn't make any sense because they're not related to the Fears, so it didn't make any sense. Of course, Daryl Britt Gibson is Martin. He's great. He's funny. Randy Havens is George Fear. I feel bad for that guy a little bit. Then they brought back some of their friends, like Julia Rewald as Lizzie and Kate. Matthew Zook is Alderman Good. He's the Mayor Will Good. Same guy, right? Isaac comes back. We have some new people here as Michael Chandler. He's the pastor at Cyrus Miller. We saw him in flashbacks for the first one, but just from his death scenes. You actually get to see him now as a human before he becomes the first Shadyside victim, right? All right, we got Emily Rudd is, kind of coming back here as Abigail / Cindy Berman, the older sister. She did a great job. We get some Grace Miller / Miss Frazier. Her mom is the same in both, which I thought was kind of cool. Then McCabe Slough killed it, man, because Mad Thomas, and he's Tommy Slater in part 2. He's the killer. He's the Nightwing killer. He was great as like the creepy old drunk dude. Like, I see evil in you. He was just hammered all the time, which made me laugh. Jordana Spiro is back as the widow / Miss Lane, which was pretty cool. She's Nurse Lane from part 2 and part 1. So she's in all 3 movies, which was pretty cool. Ruby Lane comes back. We get to see a Jacob Berman, I guess the ancestor of Ziggy, which is pretty neat. Ryan Simpkins is back as Alice, and Todd Allen Durkin is the Officer Kopinski. He's in all 3, which is pretty funny. So the cast is pretty solid. I really like the connection. Like I said, the only one I thought was kind of weird was having Josh be Henry Fear. I get why they did it, but he shouldn't have been there. That's the only thing I thought was kind of strange. But there were some really cool, like, back and forths with this cast that I liked.
I thought they did a really good job with playing all the different characters. It was really neat to see.
Yeah, their accents were a little goofy at times, but other than that, it was great.
Yeah. Yeah, I hated Thomas. Golly, he was the worst. I was like, God, you're gonna believe the town drunkard? Y'all are so gullible and just ridiculous.
Well, it just shows how crazy and how easy that spreads. Because before this happened, he would have been the person everyone was avoiding on the streets. You know what I mean? Like, they call him Mad Thomas. You know what I mean? So, like, avoid Mad Thomas. He's covered in piss and hanging out drinking Applejack all day.
Yeah, I liked all the. I liked how it showed, like, because a lot of that was all stemming from, like, in historical times or whatever. But, like, the kids were still kids, and they did things they shouldn't have done. And if they were doing anything outside of, like, what was okay, considering, like, the church or whatever, they were, possessed by demons, or Satan was in them or whatever. And I thought that they did such a good job with all that. I don't know, like, I guess the writing was just really well done. And, like, when I first watched it, because I don't know, this was my second time watching it, I really didn't suspect Solomon at all, which was weird to me that I didn't.
Yeah.
I think it's because I wanted him not to be who he was.
He just seems like a nice guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm here for you, Sarah Fear. But then goes back to that weird jealousy. He just wanted Sarah Fear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he had a hard shake. And you even kind of understand why he did it, right? I mean, not necessarily making a deal with the devil. But we see things in modern times like people whose, family are hungry and they go in and they rob banks or commit crimes, and they do it out of weird reasons, right? Not some people will just do it because they just want to, but you have some of those cases where it's like, oh, I robbed this grocery store because my kids are hungry. His life was crap. His ground was infertile, and he decided he was going to do something about it. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
which is interesting because like you kind of see it start to fall apart at the end, which I really like. I love the cyclical nature of this story. It starts and ends at the same place,
Mm-hmm.
which is awesome. The movie begins in the mall, it ends at the mall. You get that solid wrap up of everything, and then that last little couple scenes where they're walking out, I thought was really cool. So it's funny. My first note is it's the only film to actually reference Fear Street, which I thought was cool. Like I did notice that was
Yeah.
my favorite. Another good little note here. Good was a surname of a prevalent family during the actual Salem witch trials. So that's a nice little tie to the actual witch trials. They
Yeah.
were one of the people accusers. They were a big family during the witch trials. And
Yeah, because he really just F's her life all the way up.
they have all of them up. Like that little flashback scene, and this is one of my notes too, where it shows like the line of goods naming out names. And they show that
Yeah.
mustache dude who's like, William Barker. I'm like, first off, you named like a 7-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I want to know
Which is
like
sad.
why. You know what I mean? Like, were you a pedo with that mustache? Is that why that character had a mustache? Or was William Barker like mean to your kid or something? You know what I mean? Like, what happened? And why that kid had that crazy ass mask? I just don't understand. I want to know so much more about that.
Yeah.
Creepy
All of
MF.
them, really. It's like, why did y'all choose the people you chose
Well,
throughout the whole thing?
I was doing some research, and one of the theories was that, and of course, the theory is mostly based on Ruby Lane, but and also the milkman. It was someone that was like unsuspecting. So essentially, they could get more victims.
Oh, okay, got you.
Because the
That
deal
makes
is that
sense.
you name a person and they kill people, and that heart of darkness, Satan, whoever, that blob thing feeds on the blood of the Shadysiders. So, like Ruby Lane, for instance, was like she was such a sweet girl and unsuspecting, so she was able to kill a bunch of people. Like the milkman was going
Mhm.
house to house murdering people. Billy Barker's a child. He just went through and just beat people to death with a bat.
I mean, that makes kind of sense, but that really large man?
Yeah, I think that one might have just been like, hey, it's a creepy giant dude. The one that drowned people in the leg with that crazy mask on that made no sense.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
like freaking humongous.
Yeah, I know. You don't even realize how big he is until you see him in the mall with the other ones, and they're like, he's just like smacking them around like they're nothing.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was creepy. I thought he was really creepy, actually.
Yeah. I think some of it has to do with that, but also just, I would say the good that probably said Ruby Lane tried to hit on her and she turned him down. So he picked her. So the reason why Tommy, I think that dude was like, didn't like Tommy. He was
Yeah,
like the elder cool kid amongst the Shadysiders, so he picked him.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I think it comes down to just their own hubris and like, how dare you not be nice to me, or how dare you do this? I would
yeah.
almost
Because Solomon
guarantee.
chose Cyrus, and he was the pastor of
Yeah.
and the leader of their community. So he was like, that was like the perfect person, the figurehead.
Yeah, that
So,
also allows him and his brother to step in as leaders.
mm-hmm.
As you see immediately in that scene, whenever they start doing the witch trial person, the guy talking is Solomon's brother.
Yeah,
Hell, the kid that kind of blames them all, I'm pretty sure that's that's Solomon's nephew. He sucked, and he got his later on when he got murdered by the Skullface guy. Boom.
yeah,
What's up?
stupid.
There's also some cool theories that the reason why Ziggy survived was because Nick wanted her to live because he liked her.
Well,
Like she died, and he used his little powers to like bring her back. Because he says, "I've let a lot of people die tonight, but not you." That was one of his lines in part two that didn't make a lot of sense. Like maybe he was like into her, but I think maybe that he like legitimately made a deal for her.
well, there's a flashback that she remembers, and it alluded to that
Yeah.
too, because she was like, "Oh, so he allowed me to live."
Yeah, because she got stabbed a bunch. Like a bunch
Yeah,
in that
and
scene.
she was about to get murdered again by the same guy,
Yeah.
the milkman. I was
Yeah.
like, I looked at Johnny and said, isn't that the one that stabbed her to death in the second one? And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Ugh,
Yeah, that was some
that's
of the critiques
terrifying."
that they thought her responses to seeing the Nightwing killer and the Milkman killer should have been more like visceral, like they for it to be the way she lives with the clocks and all crazy, like Laurie Strode survivor syndrome here. You should have had some kind of PTSD or something. Like when she saw those two killers, the one that brutally murdered all your friends and your sister, and then the one who killed you, people were saying they would have thought she would have reacted differently instead of being like, "Tag, you're it," which I thought was actually cool too. That goes back to the second story. I want to carry this girl, and then she actually carried him, which I thought was kind of cool.
I don't know how I feel about it because I feel like she kind of reverted back to her old self for a minute in the third one because she became more of a strong. She kind of got her senses knocked into her basically by Dina and Josh, and they were like, "We could end this if we just need you to help us do
Yeah, it
it."
makes sense. Like she was more
Um,
motivated to end that than she was to be
yeah,
afraid.
and when he like when Nick pulled her against him and she had blood all over, she was terrified in that part. So I don't know if I completely agree with the critics on that one or whoever was complaining about it. I feel a little indifferent about it because I feel like she finally realized that if she didn't do something, it was just going to continuously happen, and it was just going to get worse and worse, and Shadysiders were just going to keep getting murdered, and I just feel like she reverted back to the old Ziggy. That's where I took that.
That makes
I
sense.
don't know.
That's pretty cool. That was one of the facts too. That was kind of funny. Like whenever she says "Tag, you're it," there's a neon light like kind of reflected on her face that looks like David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust makeup.
Oh, that's fun. I didn't notice that.
And she was sent to Earth to be the savior in advance in disaster and lost his way. That was like Ziggy Stardust's story. So that was pretty cool. Little nod there. Um, which I kind of like it. And there's so many things in this one that are like foreshadowed in the previous ones. Like apparently in part two, when Kurt finds the young Nick Good with his hands covered in blood during Tommy's murder spree, and Kurt says, "Did you do this?" Nick doesn't answer. He tells him to help the hidden campers escape. So he's putting Thomas Slater's name on the wall as part of the ritual. So essentially, he started it at Camp Nightwing while he was there. He goes down there
Mhm.
and says, he sacrificed the whatever goat or whatever it was, all the goats in his house, which is funny and weird, and just said Tommy Slater. So it was like he did it at the start of that movie. You just don't see it, which is pretty cool. You get that flashback when he does it. That happens like right before they go down there and find it, right? Right when Tommy starts
Yeah.
killing people, which is pretty interesting. Nice little wrap ups in all these.
Yeah, there was a funny line in it that I had to write down because it made me laugh so hard. But Josh, because Dina had just sprayed herself with Calvin Klein cologne,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
and Josh he goes, "You smell like an androgynous baby," and I was like laughing. I was like, I love Josh. He once in a while will be like a little nugget of like just pure funny, and I'm like,
dude.
it's a good break from the
In the '90s,
serious.
though, CK1 was the cologne slash perfume. Everybody wore that, and it was for both
Oh,
sexes. That was the point. I'm pretty sure I had that in the '90s. I thought it was cool. Like, yeah, everybody
I
wanted
thought it was funny.
CK1.
She sprayed a lot too. That's why he was like, "You smell like an androgynous
Yeah.
baby."
Well, I think she was trying to get them not to smell her
Yeah,
blood, right? Because she's like, I'm going to cover myself in this most ridiculous spray ever. There was a nice little nod to the '90s. I think it just made me laugh.
yeah,
There's a couple other things I really liked. Like when they showed Sarah Fear how she was buried, the way her legs are laid out, she looks like the Hanged Man tarot card figure, which is supposed to represent self sacrifice, which I thought was pretty cool. Because once you find
yeah.
out
It's
what Sarah
sad.
Fear actually did, like it wasn't, anything malicious at all. Even though she was fully prepared to go full evil, she ended up sacrificing herself to save really the person who started it. Because like her little girlfriend was like, Sarah was like, "No, we shouldn't do this," and she was like, "Yeah, we should. What's up?" So really, Hannah Miller was the one that instigated all of it,
Yeah,
and then Sarah Fear took the blame and got freaking hung and her hand cut off, which was brutal.
Yeah, it was.
Which showed for me was another cool thing because the hand was a MacGuffin the whole time. Like you thought the hand was so important, and it literally meant nothing
Yeah.
at all. That crap in the book was just some random Shadysider trying to solve the problem. Probably back in the day, join the hands together. Like, no, that doesn't fix it. Thought it was kind of
It
cool.
sure doesn't. It's got to kill a good.
Yeah, you got to kill the oldest good apparently, and he had no
Yeah.
kids either. So I think he was waiting for OZ to give him a little time of day all the time. He didn't have any kids, so they ended it right there. Although there's a couple things at the end I'm like, ooh, it's gonna be more. So before we get to the rubric, I'm gonna do the roll call of death real fast because there are some pretty cool kills in this. So you start off in 1666. This has the highest kill count of all the films. There's 19 kills. You get to see Constance Berman. Her eyes are gouged out, which is pretty gnarly looking. That was a cool scene where everybody's on that church and they're all slow and there's that pile of eyeballs. It was creepy. And then Henry Fear, his eyes are also gouged out. There's 10 other kids in there, and none of them are named. But fun thing, they're the kids from the camp in part 2.
Yeah, I figured.
All those kids are the kids that died in the camp in part 2 because there's that scene when you walk out of the church and the bodies are all laid out covered in white sheets. It's the exact same scene from the end of part 2 when they walk out of that main camp room, right? Probably the same building, and they're all laid there covered in bed sheets. It's like a throwback to that one, which I thought was pretty cool. Of course, then you got Pastor Cyrus Miller. He gets stabbed by Solomon with a pitchfork, which was pretty brutal. The widow, you find her, their neck slit, and then Sarah Fear, of course, killed. They're the only ones killed in 1666. And then this movie has an interesting 94 part 2. You get the other title screen pops up for like the last, half an hour, I guess, of the film.
It's like it says part 2 or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, it says 1994 part 2.
Okay.
Officer Kopinski finally dies. He gets stabbed in the back. He actually got his gun back, it looked like, which was kind of funny. Now he gets killed by the milkman killer. The other cop also gets killed by the milkman killer, apparently. Officer Cuzio. Nick Good finally gets got. Dina stabs him straight in the eyeball with that crazy buck 110 butcher knife thing. And then the Sunnyvale guy at the end who just gets hit by the car because he was meddling.
Yeah.
He's probably trying to call Neighborhood Watch. Gets hit by a dump truck, which is like the show of the beginning of the end for them.
Yeah.
And they have a nice
that.
little.
It was like sweet
counter.
karma at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a little counter to it as well. If you notice when Dina leaves at the very end, that note says they're always talking about how their dad's unemployed and they're just kind of everything's terrible. But there's a sign on the door that says, left it for an interview, take your brother to school, don't cook. But it's like their fortunes are turning and the Sunnyvale fortunes are going back to how they were. Because you notice Solomon lived on like infertile land.
Yeah.
He's
it all circled back to that.
Yeah. So I think, it'd be cool to see some movies going forward, which I hope there's more, but it'd be cool to see some movies going forward to see like Sunnyvale has become like just barren garbage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you guys are terrible. And you can see a nice little like flip.
It would be great.
Because at the end, someone takes the book. If you watch through the whole credits, two hands snatch the book. End. They always leave the book. No one ever destroys the book. They always just leave it sitting there.
Yeah, burn that freaking thing. Like,
it's not the Necronomicon. Burn it. Bury it. Something.
It's not the Necronomicon.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why are we leaving it there?
No, it's not. I have no idea. That's what I thought. I said when they were like walking past it, I'm like, pick it up and take it with you.
Yeah. Especially like Dina, you had that weird flashback. You know what that book is. You just left it. It's whatever. Let's limp out of this house. Nah, bro. Nah. Yep. Should have killed it.
Stupid.
Mm-hmm. White people. I swear.
That was my last note. And someone steals the book.
There was a lot of speculation and talk about there being either a part 4 or a new series based around these, because these did really well. Like that's the one positive of things being released on Netflix is that they don't care about box office. They care about how many people watch it, and they've been watched so many times that by Netflix's metric, they've done really well. So I would like to see more. in this realm because they were pretty good. You could get a weekly show off of this. You know what I mean? Like, Are You Afraid of the Dark kind of Fear Street stories or American Horror
Yeah,
Story kind of vibe.
that would be fun to watch.
Yeah,
A
like but for
series.
teenagers.
Yeah, I mean, I'd watch it.
Yeah, me too. Especially around there. Make it all happen on Fear Street. Let's take it back. Well, it's not like you don't have 1,000 ideas to go from. There's like what 40 or 50 Fear Street books. You could
It's a
do
lot.
whole seasons. Come on, man. All right. Well, you anything to add before we jump into the rubric?
No.
All right, let's get to it. So, the literary element: script, story development, dialogue, and character development. What do you think? I thought it was pretty
I,
well
th-
did.
I
Oh
think
my god.
well did.
Well did. Doot doot doot. Jesus Christ.
I think considering all three of them, I think this one probably was the best written, only because it wrapped everything up so nicely, and everything was very intentional. The characters were really well done, even in the short period of time that you get to see Solomon Good go from this really sweet, I don't know what word it is I'm looking for him, but humble, I guess.
Yeah, he's like a
You feel like
humble
he was
widower.
super, yeah, and then all of a sudden he becomes this just horrific, like just heinous person that it was totally fooled by. Everyone was
Yeah.
fooled by,
Well, I think at the
basically.
beginning well, I don't know because yeah, no, it's interesting because for a minute I thought her story is what led him to do it, but then when you see the flashbacks, he was the one that saw him in the woods. So yeah, he was just, I guess, had a bad run of luck and was tired of it. Right? He tried to find
Yeah,
the quick fix instead of just going back to town.
yeah. He wanted his land to be fertile, and done well, and like he was mad at the widow Mary for, I guess, not helping his wife and
Yeah,
child, and like he was just, I don't know, he was just such a well done character. I was really like impressed with that actor's ability to be those two characters. Like he did a really good job.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, but Widow Mary was really cool. I thought she was a really cool add in. I like how they added her into each movie.
Hmm.
Like, um, and she played her role very well in each one.
Yes, she did.
Um, Even though she wasn't in the first one for very long, you just get to see a glimpse of her, and then you start to realize, oh, okay, that's who this is.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know. I just think they were all well done. I think all the kids were well done too, because they exemplified what it is to be a teenager.
100%.
You
Yeah,
know,
I agree. I agree.
um, and to be a teenager back then, I'm sure was horrible.
Hmm.
So, I don't know. I just think it was well done, and then I liked how they tied it into the 1994 one more time, and it circled all back around, like you said. It was very, um, it was well done in that right. So I
Yeah,
don't
they
know.
put a neat little bow on it.
I would give it a 25 actually, but
You think so? Full 25? I was going to say we
yeah,
did tweak the rubric a little bit to be more of a range. So now it's 20 to 25 as the in there. So you got a little more options, a little more breathing room. But I do have to agree, really, because I do think the story is fully developed in this one. The points I would have dug in for part one. They fix and answer in this one, even to the point of like explaining the spray paint and the red moss, which I
yeah,
really appreciated. The dialogue was a little meh, especially in 1666. Some of it was good, some of it was whatever, but that's nothing to really care about. There was great character development. So I agree. I think a 25 is pretty solid for this because like I said it was fairly good. I didn't have much to gripe about. Like I said, it was goofy stuff.
no,
I understood why they put the actor from Josh as Henry Fear. It probably should have been someone else. Um,
yeah,
Other than that, I kind of wish they'd have had the Sarah Fear actress show up a little bit more and not so much Adina. But again, I still understood why they did that. So it was really good, and they answered a lot of questions. And even though I knew Solomon Good was a piece of crap, I didn't expect it again until it happened. I was like, "Oh my god, I forgot you piece!" You know, you got me again. So I really like that. So yeah, 25, I can get with that.
Mm.
All right, so moving on. So the effects design element. So visual effects elements that connect to a narrative, set design, overall character design, gore, and practical versus digital effects. And this one has a little bit more of both, which I really like as one of my little notes here.
Mhm.
The Heart of Darkness is a practical effect. They built it. But then the way it moves the whole time is a digital effect. So it's both. And like
Okay.
when they're climbing out of it and becoming, and you got to see that more in this one, how they grow up out of it and they see their faces
Yeah.
scream at the camera. I really like that. I thought it looked really cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
The appliance for the eyes, it's always hard to do that appliance because it's hard not to make them look puffy. You know what I mean? Like, 'cause you put something over their face, but it looks really cool. I thought the creepy pig and all the blood in there, just that was creepy too. I like that. Um,
That was sad.
I know, right? She ate all of her babies. It's messed up. Um, Freaking pig's a cannibal. But
I mean,
I really
they
like
kind of
this one.
are.
I know they'll eat anything. The sets look great. I think for the 1666, the sets look amazing. 94, the sets look like how I remember the mall looking, man. Like there's a
Yeah.
Gadzooks in there, which took me back, made me so
Oh
like
my god, I didn't
sad.
see that. I
Yeah,
love
I know. It
Gadzooks.
was like one of my first jobs. I loved it. Best store ever. I bought all my Genkos there. I thought it was so cool. But
Had a crushed velvet shirt from there.
heck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Oh man, like a quick funny story. When I was in high school, my sophomore year, they instituted a dress code. So me and my buddies read the dress code like front to back just to see what we could do to like push it to the limit, right? Because we were so in
Mhm.
protest, I guess. There was nothing about the size of your pants. So I went to Gadzooks, begged my mom to buy me the largest khaki Jinkos that they had. I bought like 3 pair, huge legged khaki Jinkos because they were so popular in the 90s anyway. And then I wore them
Mhm.
bad boys to school and they were like, you can't wear those. I was like, show me where it says I can't wear these. And they couldn't, right? So I kept getting violations for nonsense, like my shoes not being tied or wearing a hoodie. I had more dress code violations when I graduated than I think anybody, but they were never for my ridiculous giant khaki pants. I had a polo shirt on and a clear backpack and khaki pants every day. It was
Oh
great.
my gosh.
They were just the most ridiculous khaki pants known to mankind.
It's funny.
And then when I walked the bottoms off, I made them into shorts, and they were the best shorts ever because they were all big and loose and awesome. Anyway, sorry. I really like the design in this one. I gotta give it props. I've liked all of them. I think the effects were great in all of them. The characters look period accurate. The clothes in
Yeah,
the
they do.
1600s look good.
Mhm.
The houses, the way they ate, the furniture, the dishes, it all looked good. It didn't look like they were trying to find a way around it. It looked like they legit had that stuff there, and it looked nice from the wrought iron handles or rod iron handles to just the way the town people acted and looked. It was really good.
Yeah.
How they were all filthy all the time. And then 94, it just looked like 1994. Like the way they dressed, the way they acted, the
Yeah.
neon everywhere and the black lights. It was like the most, and the super soakers were period accurate too. Like that was the first one that came out. It was like the hottest toy of the 90s. I wanted one of those so bad. I eventually got one. It was awesome. Heck
I
yeah.
think everybody wanted one of those.
Yeah, they were the best. And you could put like 2-liter bottles on them too because it was the same connector. It was awesome. But yeah, I think this is a 25 for me. 24 at the
Yeah.
least. It was so good.
Yeah. I'm in agreement. I thought it was all good.
Yeah, it was
The
great.
scene in the church was like the most horrific thing ever, and it sticks in my brain. So
Yeah, it was dark, and the way that was shot,
Mhm.
and that's we'll talk about that in the next one, because there was a lot of things I noticed. So the visual technical element. So this one is the overall aesthetic of the film is pleasing to the eye. Lighting, creative camera shots, movement, and lens selections. This is more the technical side. The previous one is, of course, you're going to be your design. That's just like special effects. This one, though, I thought, like you said, that church scene is so dark and dreary and just like ominous, right? In the way they
Mhm.
shot it was really cool. How the camera cuts from outside the guys banging their shoulders, and then it cuts them breaking through, and you have that really cool shot, and it's all slow. And then the close-ups on stuff did a really good job. But there was something I noticed every time they show the Heart of Darkness or one of the killers or like Sheriff Good, there's like a haze over the camera to kind of give you like a almost like a subconscious effect that hey, something is not okay here. And I did not
Yeah.
notice that before until I I thought it was like a trick of my light coming through my windows, and I kept going back and looking at it. And no, it's like a weird at the edges of the film, almost like they took there used to be a trick back in the day to put like petroleum jelly around the edges to give it that effect. It looks like that, which I'm sure they didn't do that this time because you can do it in post, but it was just really cool looking. And I really liked that. And I thought the lighting was super good in this one too. The way they shot that room, that whole mall in a black light, which was really neat, but
Yeah, that
they
was
weren't
fun.
glowing all ridiculous. So I really liked this. I think it was shot really well. Again, I think it has that period accurate, how like it looks lighting wise totally different in 1666 than it does in 1994, which I think is
Yeah.
really cool. 78 and 94 were pretty similar, but it looks way different, almost like sepia toned, almost in 1666. Like it's old timey looking, but
Yeah.
without being old timey looking. You know what I mean? I liked it. So,
Mhm.
what do you think there?
I mean, I don't have any complaints about it. I think they did a really good job.
I think so too. I'm sure like a really like discerning cinematographer could bring some things up, but I didn't see anything to me that was glaring. It looked great. I like the use of that like subtle effect, and like I said, most people probably didn't even notice it. It's supposed to be like almost super subtle. I just watched it in a super dark room, so it looked like, oh, that looks weird, and I kept going jumping back and forth, and it would change right when they showed different people,
Yeah.
which I really like. So I'm thinking 25. What do you think?
That's fine with me.
This might be the best rated one of the bunch. All right, man. Your
Probably.
favorite element, the sound element. So the sound represents the overall tone of the film. The soundtrack, as well as the score, keeps the audience engaged with the setting, characters, location, and narrative of the piece.
I
Sweet.
mean, the score was really good for 1666.
Yeah, it had that colonial vibe to it. It totally
Yeah,
changed.
it did. I think it stayed pretty strong the whole time they were in 1666.
Yeah, and it didn't use music, which I like. It was a full score, which fit, right? And that was my big critique in part one. Too much music. Part two, they used music again, like actual songs. But they didn't use a lot of actual music in 1666 because it doesn't make any sense. There was no music. So it's just score, which I like. I thought it was really cool. And then you see that complete shift when it goes back to 1994 to start using songs again and kind of have that, which I thought was, I appreciated it.
Yeah, me too.
It's the exact same composer. It's Marco Beltrami. We killing with the woodwinds and the period accurate vibe. I appreciate it. I thought it was great.
It was really good.
So what do you think? Sound is your baby.
I would give it a 25 on this one too, to be honest with you. But if you think it needs to be a little lower, I would go with that. It'd be fine. I just like the score a lot. And we were in 1666 more than we were in 1994. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, they go together. I think it was pretty impressive the way it was like two different scores in the same movie, which I thought was pretty good. I don't know, maybe like a 23. What do you think? Now that we
that's
have a
fine.
range. All right. It's like gives it like a 98.
I think it's deserved. So,
Although I do think part two is the best of the three. I think some of the things that part two may have suffered from, they wrapped up in this one, and I think that why it would be a big change for me. 'Cause one and two, we gave a 90. Each one got a 90. Um, I think, yeah, a 90.
yeah, they did.
Yeah, because we got them for writing on 20, and then some of the visual effects were 20. Some of the shots, but this one I think they did really good. It also shows too the way they were shot. Right, like this one was intended to be a continuation of part one. They did a good job. So yeah, I think a 98 is justified.
Yep, I think it was good.
All right, good deal. Well, there you go, guys. Fear Street, part one, two, and three. That concludes it. What was your favorite? If you had to rank them,
My favorite was the second one,
yeah,
but I think my second would be this one.
yeah. If I had
And
to
then my
rank them,
third
it'd
one,
be 78, 60, 1666, and then 94.
yeah, that'd be mine too.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. But I think 78 could stand by itself as its own film.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah,
I could watch it right now,
yeah,
actually. And I
yeah.
might. I don't know.
It stands alone. All right,
It's not
guys.
like I'm doing anything else.
I know, right? Well, hopefully you'll feel better soon. You can leave your house, but
Yeah.
maybe read the book and you can get ready for next week. as
Yeah.
we read The Outsider by R.L. Stein. Was it The Outsider? No, The Overnighter. I said The
The
Outsider.
Overnight.
The Overnight by R.L. Stein, Fear Street book. I think it's in Fear Street at the beginning, but it's also the third book in the Fear Street series if you have the old school ones.
Yeah.
I ordered a
I'm
copy.
pretty
It's
sure.
supposed to be coming, but we'll see. All right, guys. Well, that's it. You want to tell them where they can find us, Jenny?
Yep. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Horror in the Halls. You can also follow us or follow Jenny_Dreffels on Instagram. You can email us at horrorinthehalls@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, guys, reach out. We also have a Patreon as usual. You can support us, get a shout out on the episodes, and maybe get some insight into what's coming in the future. Some of the community stuff,
Yes.
might get a little quick. You'll know what the next month's going to be before everyone else, things like that. So jump in,
Yeah,
let us know how you
I'll do a
feel.
better job at that during the summer.
Yeah. It's all new to us, guys. We're killing it, though. We're doing our best.
Yeah.
Don't be haters. Anyway, all right, guys. So that's going to be the bell. We're going to get out of here.
Bye.